Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Huddle on Wednesday. We're going to start today with a quote. And this is actually our guest, one of his favorite quotes. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is Wednesday, where we talk about relationships and communication. And my dear friend and co-host Tara is not with us today. She is traveling, but we've got a wonderful guest. And before we get started, I have a couple of questions I want to ask. I'm going to start with Geo. Good morning, Geo. Geo, let us know, what time is it?
Hold on, let me look.
Okay.
It is apparent that the time is now.
That's right. It's now. The time is always now. Thank you, Gio. And I think I'm going to ask Andrea the next question. Andrea, where are you and what are you grateful for?
Catherine, I am right here, the only place I need to be, and I am grateful for family.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Love that. All right, Sorel, the last question is for you. I would like to know, how are you and who are you going to hug today?
I am the way I say I am, Catherine. And right now, right here, I am powerful, confident, and compassionate. I'm going to hug my eldest son.
He is a lucky guy.
Yeah, it's I have to open my arms really wide. He's as tough and strong as can be.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Sorel. Well, here we are with one of my dear friends, Randy Brenneman, and we're diving into the question today of how do you have great relationships with no regrets? It's a big question, a powerful topic. And before we dive in, I want to tell you a little bit about Randy. So Randy, he's the co-founder of ENAGGE Leadership Solutions, which is a human development company committed to maximizing the potential of an organization's most valuable resource, its people. He worked at American Express for 23 years, where he held leadership roles in global talent, learning and development, leadership effectiveness, operations and management, and global leadership development and coaching. He now is a passionate executive coach, inclusive leader, and dynamic facilitator with expertise in global operations management, leading diverse, geographically dispersed teams, learning design, executive onboarding, employee engagement, and he really puts people first. That is the one thing that when anybody asks me about Randy, he is all love and he puts people first. Randy, welcome. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Catherine. I am excited to be here.
Yeah, so this is a great topic. I love this. You were, like I said, you put people first. You're all about relationships. And we're talking about how to have great relationships with no regrets. What is important about this topic to you? Why now? Why this question?
Why now? This question for me is, actually, I want to start with a story, if that's okay, because I think that will really help kind of sum up how I got here. So it's a bit of a life story, but I'm going to give you the short version because there's certainly a long version to this, and I'm going to give you the short version. So I knew very young that I was gay, and I grew up in a Mennonite home in the late 60s, early 70s, but I always knew that I was loved. I also knew that I should probably keep this thing to myself for most of my childhood. And in my early 20s, I got to what I call a bit of a choice point. And I decided I'm noticing getting a little distant from my parents. And I wanted that to be a strong relationship in my life. It had been up till now, but it felt like it ended up being a bit divergent. And so I noticed that I was at a choice point, and I decided to come out to my parents. I'll save the rest of the details of that conversation for maybe another time. But that was a choice point, early 20s. Fast forward, early 30s, another choice point arrives. In general, we didn't talk about the topic, but we're able to be with the topic. Okay, so early 30s comes another big moment in my life where I wanted to have a commitment ceremony with a partner. And I knew that I also wanted to maintain this loving relationship with my parents. But I had to step back and think, okay, well, but something very important is happening. My brother was also getting married the same year, and there was lots of excitement and festivity around that new relationship. And mine was a bit hush hush. So I was like, no, what do I want for this relationship? And this is not it. So again, a choice point, and decided that before entering the conversation, how did I want this to go, and what's the ultimate outcome? My ultimate outcome was I wanted us to be connected. I wanted us to all have the same kind of relationship. I was also fully aware that I wasn't willing to compromise on that point. And I'm willing to deal with the consequences, which might mean that we kind of go our separate ways, because I wasn't willing to not be fully authentic in this relationship. Had a conversation, again, another long story. The short version is my parents and family chose to come to my commitment ceremony. Yeah, so now I'll fast forward again, early 40s, I'm living in Atlanta, my parents live in Iowa. It's a big distance, and noticing that, my initial thought was, I need to be closer to home, or I wanted to be. I noticed that draw to be closer to my parents. And again, there was a choice point, like, how do I want to be in this relationship with them? What matters most? Like, the easiest one is, oh yeah, move back to Iowa. It wasn't going to happen for me. So like, what do I want to create? How do I want that to unfold? Or how do I want that to happen? And so I had to really discover what are other ways to be close to my parents when geographic distance is not going to be the answer. So fast forward, yes, I know I look young, but early 50s. And now, I've always heard this topic of aging parents, but I didn't really, of course we age, right? It's just like, of course we age. What does that mean? And now I have a more real sense of what that means as your parents age. And so another choice point arrives, like distance feels even more important now. And really wanting to decide, how do I want to engage in this phase of life with my parents and with our relationship, knowing that I'm staying in Atlanta. And although I tried over and over, they're staying in Iowa. They're not coming to Atlanta. I lost that battle. And so really found a way to kind of pull apart what closeness means when physical geography is not there. And so there was very intentional part about that. Fast forward again, because I'm trying to go for the short version. So I was actually teaching a class 2 weekends ago, day one of a 3-day class. And I get a phone call from my dad who says, mom's in the ER, don't know anything yet. Had a little bit of a conversation, don't know anymore. So day 2 of the class, it's an all-day 8-hour class. We took a little break. I called in quick, like, do you know anything? And he used the word hospice.
Oh dear.
And I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. He said, no, I was not either. And it was another one of those choice points of, one detail I left out, like the drive to home is 13 hours. I have, when mom had a stroke, hopped in the car and driven like that.
Yeah.
Almost forgot clothes, but got in the car and drove. And in this moment, because I had been so intentional, there was peace. Knowing that, this isn't one of those hop in the car moments. And some people would say, like, and this could be the end. Why wouldn't you go now? And part of it was I really, in that split second, stopped and thought, I have been so intentional about living and loving every moment until now, and doing what mattered for both of us, on both sides, that if this happened, today or tomorrow, it happened. And I was at peace with that. So I'll fast forward just a half a second, well, maybe a day forward. And what we ended up finding out was my dad misheard the word hospice. She wasn't actually in hospice. She is still in the hospital now. And it's not the hospice situation. So, and what I really appreciated about that moment was the moment I feared in many ways. I had the opportunity to kind of be in that moment and see what it would be like.
Right. That's what I thought was so unique about that. You got to play it out even though it isn't.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that, Randy. It's really powerful. And I hear a couple of things in there. One is there's this place where you connected with your values early on about the commitment ceremony. And I heard that several times throughout. This is not the relationship I want to have. So it feels really important to get connected to what is it that you want to have in order to make that happen throughout.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, there are multiple times throughout that where I started realizing that a choice needed to be made, but it was multiple times because something wasn't working for me.
And how did you know that?
Yeah, well, part of it was probably different through several of those times. The first time when it was around the commitment ceremony was I got to see two parallel situations with my brother and his fiance, and with me and my fiance, and how much it was for my brother was part of the conversation and the excitement and the planning and we're all a part of this. And, there was just so much a part of the conversation for, the 6 months to a year prior. And I noticed in myself, even not to mention their reaction, in myself thinking like, oh, I can't talk about mine. I have to get my excitement and planning over here with my friends, but it's not something we do over here. And so it was kind of that awareness like, oh, wow. Like before, they'd come to visit me with a partner, but it was never, we just still didn't talk about it, right? So we be with it and we don't talk about it. And
so it kind of highlighted in that moment when you could see the difference, the disparity.
It had
well, again, even in that moment, even in that moment, you said I had to connect to what I was recognizing is that in me, I didn't feel like I could talk about it. So that self-awareness feels really important about, it feels like you have to define what kind of relationship you want to have. And then there's this whole other process of staying focused on that and attuned to that and making choices along the way that connect to it.
Well, and it gets tricky too, right? Because initially in that kind of moment, I was blaming. It's like, oh, you're this way with me and therefore I'm not able to. And it was in that moment of realizing, oh, but this is on me. I get to choose how I want to be in relationships. And I hadn't been willing or didn't even have the awareness that we needed to be having a different conversation, separate from what was going on, with our commitments to a partner. There was a deeper conversation that needed to be had.
Yeah. And one of the things, because I know you and we've had this conversation before, one of the things that struck me when I was thinking about it is that when you made the choice to be closer to them, meaning you would go visit them, very intentional steps to have that closeness in relationship despite the distance.
Yeah.
So what stuck out to me is that it wasn't, I'm going to be with them and I hope they appreciate it, and they better say thank you, or, I didn't realize that until I was thinking through this topic, is that you never had any conditions on that. You made the choice. This is the relationship you wanted. You were going to do these things.
Yes. Yeah. And again, as that was intentional. It's like, what do what do I want? What do I need out of this relationship? And there were
Mhm.
conversations around what support do you need now? Like, especially in this later elderly or aging, part, what support do you need? What's there? And then I get to see, is that something I can help with? Is there a way I can help enable or empower others to provide that support, whether it's me engaging from afar, whether it's me engaging siblings who live closer but not in town either? It's like, how do I want to be? And I would say even from that point, like being a leader in my life as well, and kind of stepping in, like, how does leadership actually play a role here too?
Mhm.
To create the life that I want. But as you
I
said,
love that.
back into values and what's needed. And
Yeah.
what I want to create.
Well, and it's interesting because a lot of times when you hear, like, especially caring about elderly parents, and then I also want to kind of layer this over a, sort of romantic relationship or a partner relationship. But when we talk about elderly parents, it can be easy to be like, just give, 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 give. But I hear you holding two parallel pillars equally strongly, if you will, yourself and others.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, that feels very true as well. Like how, like it's not just what do I want, right? We're in relationship together. So what do you want?
Mhm.
What do you need?
Mhm.
How do you see us interact together? What works about this relationship for you?
Mhm. Mhm. To be
Right.
in dialogue like that and co-create it.
Well, and I think that's an important part is to be in dialogue about it. And to always know that, because I can operate in a vacuum over here about here's what I'm wanting to create. And if it actually isn't landing well over there, like, sure, I get served. But ultimately, I want the relationship to be served. I want us to be, in this together. It is a relationship. It's not a one-way situation here.
Yeah. So in that case, it's almost like there are three pillars. It's yourself, it's other, and it's the relationship in the middle, holding all three of those.
Yes.
Yeah. It feels like there's a bit of a formula, this is the way my brain works, which is, identify what it is, what you want. This is really simplifying it. Connect with your values, and then choose along the way, making sure that those choice points match up
Yeah.
with your values and those, the intention that you've set.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things, interestingly, that made this even more powerful for me is the willingness to choose out.
Say more about that.
Yeah, because I think sometimes what I see in relationships with others is they're so invested to have that relationship regardless of all else, that they're a little
Gotcha.
too far in, right?
Mhm.
And not
Mhm.
able to kind of see and create or be aware of what's actually not working. Because I think part of what's helpful is you got to be able to name what's not working so that, as you said, you're in dialogue around what's actually not working, either because you need to choose differently to find what works, or be in dialogue, with the other person around, oh, that's not working for me. And am I actually misinterpreting what's happening? Or did you mean to do that or say that? Because here's the impact over here on me.
Right. That's a good point. It's almost like you decide you're going to have that relationship, whatever it looks like, and you get super almost controlling about it. You're biased now. All the decisions you're making are pointing towards that one outcome versus the values. I think that's what I hear you saying is that you were willing to say, this may mean we're not in relationship, or it's a very different relationship than the one I really want.
Yes.
But you'd be honoring your values in it.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're going to open it up to questions in just a second, but I am curious because, in one way, okay, this is about parents, they're aging, there's a lot of dynamics there, but in some ways it might be a little bit easier than, or it's definitely different, let's just say different than being in relationship with, say, a partner. So how do you take this, this concept of having the relationship that you want with no regrets into your relationship, your most, your intimate relationships?
Yeah. There's another mini story there too. So looking back, the previous commitment ceremony I mentioned, that relationship didn't work out, sadly. I'm in a relationship now. It's been about 18 years. But I think part of the secret to our longevity as well is that, you know, and we weren't legally able to get married, right? Initially, that came many years later. And we actually, because we weren't able to, in many ways, we had to choose in every day. There was no structure or format other than our word that we were actually in relationship. So there was this very interesting level of commitment or intention about, I choose you. And today I really don't have to because we're not married anyway, right? But I choose you, I choose to stay. And even when it's difficult, right? Like there is a bit of a freedom to escape, and we chose in very intentionally.
Interesting.
I think it is holding that you actually don't have to stay. Actually had us even more strongly committed. Choose.
So we have a mutual friend, and that you'll recognize the story probably, but she told me early on in their marriage, they got married very young. Everybody that they knew was divorced, and they didn't want to get divorced. But you know, when they got married, they looked at each other and said, you know, let's get married. Let's just do it. We can always get divorced. And it came up over and over again. Divorce was always an option. I know that sounds really strange, but when she described it, she said it was always an option.
Yeah.
So nobody had to stay. They chose. They've been married for almost 30 years. They chose, just like you're saying, they chose every day because they knew at any point somebody could leave. So it was an intentional choice every day.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating to think about, you know, because we get in that marital structure sometimes, and like that's what keeps us, not the internal.
Yeah. Well, I do think that it is this awareness of what are the options, but like being out and considering that possibility is just as important to hold as I'm choosing in, right? Because then it has you get more aware and more familiar with what you do actually want.
Right.
At every step of the way, right? Because when you're 3 years in and it's like divorce is an option, or, you know, if we could just do this, well, what would it be like? And you actually think it through, and then you're like, no, I actually like it here, or I actually enjoy being with you. And now I'm actually present to 3 years down the road. What do I really enjoy about being with you 3 years down the road versus what I initially chose you for? Because I dare say along the years, those things are different.
Right. Right. That's such a
18
great
years
point.
in my relationship, there are some things, because I think he's hot, but that's still there. But
Yes.
there are some other things too, like I'm choosing you now because of what our life is now, not what I chose you for, you know, back in 2003.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Such a good conversation. I want to open this up to questions. I want to hear what other folks have to say. And thank you so much for being so honest and transparent. It's just it's so good to hear in terms of relationships. So yeah, so who has a question for Randy? I have more, I could keep going, but I always like to hear what others have to say. And I see Sorrel has his hand up. Sorrel.
It's not a question, Randy. It's just an acknowledgement of the space you've created this morning. Being so transparent opens me up to see that to be in a relationship and create great relationships without regrets is really a matter of choice. And I see many instances where what I equated to a great relationship was a relationship where I was sacrificing something over here to be in the relationship. And in the end, the regret was, for me, regretting that I kind of cheated that part of myself.
Yeah.
And I can see the other side too, where I'm so overly quote unquote selfish, where I abuse another in one way, shape, or form, whether emotionally, and I can see regrets there. So what I'm taking away from the conversation is there are those choice points, right?
Yeah.
And it's like they're happening all the time. Every moment is a choice point where I can choose to be in a relationship without sacrificing anything for me or another. or requiring another to sacrifice anything. And that takes something very different than what I was born into.
Yeah.
I was born into a world of compromises. It's great. And the world you're painting for us is a world of no compromising, but a world of choice. And I'm really grateful for that.
Mm.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, thank you, Sorrel. Well, I'd love to add too, like there's this interesting magic around intentionality that goes along with choice. And what I mean by that is, you know, the whole relationship with my partner, 18 years, if I stick to that one, like it's not been rainbows and ponies, right? The entire time. I would guess any long-term relationship, there are always ups and downs. But there is even in that time where, you know, things aren't amazing or aren't beautiful, or that when there is anger or situations in any relationship, the ability to have that awareness and like, oh, what is actually happening here? What is my role? What is their role? And how can we be intentional about what we want to create and still know that it really sucks right now? And I choose in anyway. Like in that moment of when it sucks and you're choosing in, and because I choose in, what will I do differently now? Right? Like what I will do differently now when I'm actually choosing in when it sucks is different when I'm knowing that it sucks and I really hate you right now. And my behavior then, right, is a little different than when I'm actually choosing in because I love you right now and you're pissing me off.
Yeah.
Very different ways.
I love that. I hear choice now as not choosing anything, but always choosing the relationship itself.
Yeah.
Whichever way it is right now.
Yeah.
And grateful for whatever it teaches me in its current state. I love that.
Yeah. It does create that extra awareness, like I'm choosing the relationship. And I love what you said, like, and there's something I'm actually needing to learn here, as well as likely the other. And they're probably different lessons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Based on our background, our history, our context.
Yeah. I love the concept of choosing in and choosing out. There's something about that language that it's not like, you know, I'm not choosing you. I'm not, it's just where am I and what is the choice? There's something a little bit more neutral about that language. You know, I choose to be in right now. That's great. We have time for one more question or comment if anybody has something for Randy. And then, you know what I'd love to hear, Randy, actually, is what would be your bottom line? Like, if we leave, this is such a big topic. It's could change the way I know for me how I am in relationship and how I see at any point when things are either going well or not going well. Yeah. So what would be the one thing you would want us to take away from the conversation today?
I think the bottom line, very short, 2 sentences. Every minute matters. Choose powerfully.
That's so true. Thank you, Randy. It's so true. Every moment matters. Choose powerfully. Yeah. That's great. You've given me a lot today. Thank you so much for sharing with our daily Huddle community and bringing your wisdom and your light and your love and your joy, and specifically your wisdom about relationships. And we're going to close out today the way that we normally do with our 7 tenets. And I'm going to do them a little bit differently today. So a lot of the tenets have us to, they're about well-being. They're about treating our body well and our mind well. So don't forget to sleep. Okay, it's important. Make time for it. Get your 7+ hours. I got those last night. It felt great to wake up to. That'll lead you to stress less. Okay, relax your shoulders. Take a deep breath. Just stress less. That's right. Cece's got it. She's like on it. Thank you. I'm feeling that. Eat mostly plant-based. That's the last part of myself. If you eat those plants, they are so good. They are light. They keep your body light. And they're delicious. And if you watch Vince and Roland, then you will understand that you can even make them addictive. And then you will only want to eat plants. So eat mostly plant-based. And give. Just like Randy did here today. Give of your spirit, your wisdom, your love. And laugh out loud. Find a kid, tell a joke, look at a silly dog. Sometimes I get on YouTube and watch those crazy baby videos just to laugh. It creates endorphins. Find a reason to laugh. And I wanted to end today with love, because Randy is love. He is the equivalent of love. And I love being here with all of you. I love having the opportunity. I love that Sorrel and Gio created this. And I love you, Randy, and all of you. And I love that you came here today to share this with us.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. We'll see you tomorrow on Thursday's Daily Huddle. Love.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you,
Bye, guys.
Catherine.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you.
Great to be here.